Hello, my name is Aditya Lodha. I'm one of the founders of the Current Events Chronicle, and today we're back with another episode of our podcast, the Current Events Chronicle coverage. Today, me and a good friend of mine, Abhinav Goyal, are here to talk about the 2020 to 2021 college application season and just our experience as seniors with everything going on. So without further ado, Abhinav, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey, as my friend said, my name is Abhinav, and we're just here to talk about the college application season for both of us, answer some questions, maybe talk about some juicy things, but in general, just get to, just get some of it out because, both of us were pretty stressed seniors, but we're towards the end of the process.
Abhinav, I guess just to give a little bit of introduction about yourself, you're a senior, as I mentioned before, and you're going to Cornell University to study engineering. Congratulations.
Hey.
And I guess what I wanted to ask you was, right off the bat, just in the 2020 to 2021 year with COVID going on and just everything going on, what was just straight up the hardest part about applying, being an applicant?
I would say one of the hardest parts for sure was not being able to experience the colleges prior to applying to them. I think you've heard that a lot of people before they apply to colleges, they make sure it's the right field for them. It has all the things they want. But most of all, people care about the campus life. So, personally, I was able to visit a couple of colleges, but I know a lot of my friends and my colleagues were not able to visit any campuses whatsoever, and they weren't able to get a feel of what it's like to really be a student there. So, personally, that's why I applied to a broader range of colleges. And I know you applied to a broader range of colleges as well. But it turned out to be really hard to choose what to apply to. But in the end, applying to a broader range gave us more choices as well. So I guess, that's probably the number one hardest part of applying to colleges, especially during COVID. So.
I think you make a really good point, and I also think a really hard part about it was just meeting with teachers. And I know we have Zoom and all that stuff, but college is such a big part of your life, and when you apply, it's a huge thing. A lot of people are involved, and you need teachers to write you rec letters. You need people to look over it, and I've talked to many people, and they've told us, and they've said that I can't imagine how the class of 2021 was able to do this in a virtual capacity, because when you have people read over college essays or have college recommendations, it's kind of like a very personal sit down one-to-one thing, and just not being able to have that personal touch and not being able to just meet with teachers in person due to COVID and not knowing when we're going back to school, even that was a pretty tough part of the process. And not to mention just there were just so many more applications this year, which I think surprised a lot of people because people thought it was COVID, there aren't going to be that many applications, and I was one of those people. So I guess you just want to speak more to the number of applications and what you took from that.
You're completely right. The fact that there's so many applications, automatically you have to differentiate yourself. But the fact that now we're not even able to talk to our teachers in person, we're not able to visit the campuses, we're not able to do the same extracurriculars we might have planned a long time ago, and then it just suddenly shut down. For example, I was planning to do research over the summer, and I had to do that in an entirely virtual capacity. And although it was a great experience, I won't say it wasn't a great experience, it's just, it wasn't exactly what I imagined. So the sheer amount of applications made it so you had to automatically already differentiate yourself, and it's such a tough year, it's not just exactly possible. One thing I will say that's really positive that came out of this is it shows how creative people can be. I saw some truly wonderful things that people were doing over the quarantine and were really pushing themselves outside their comfort zone, because I don't think normally people would have gone this far to maybe create an organization that helps COVID through one of their passions, or just helps out people in general. So there's negatives and positives to everything, but I think the fact that there were so many applications, one, you had to be unique, but second, you had to find a way to work around everything that's going on. So
that's so true. And people really just struggled, especially speaking with everyone, to just find activities and to just get those letters of recommendation and to just fill out applications, because they were just on their own, so disconnected, and it was just something that no one went through. And I think that we as human beings, when we go through a tough experience, we oftentimes think that oh, we're the only people to go through this. And something really interesting that I had a conversation with a cousin of mine, and he applied to college roughly almost 10, 11 years ago now, and he applied during 2009. And of course, 2009 was the year of the financial crisis, and he thought, oh, because it's a financial crisis, there aren't going to be that many applications, but it was the exact opposite. There were so many applications because, in times of uncertainty, people want to have some certainty in their lives. And I just think that, like, having that bit of human element of psychology is pretty interesting. That, like, history always repeats itself. Being a history major, wanting to major in history. So, I found that quite interesting.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I thought that there would be less applications from international students, from even domestic students, because I thought, maybe people want to take that gap year, they don't want to apply to college yet, or something of that sort. But, like, you can see in most colleges, they were up 50%, 66%, almost even doubled applications. And, that made it way harder. And I guess, yeah, you can say that to some extent, some of the applicants may have applied just on a whim, But the fact that some of these application officers are reading what they were reading, maybe like 20 applications a day, they're reading up to like 60 applications a day just to get through the whole thing. And, they delayed their decisions, but by what, like a week? That's not enough time. So I would say, yeah, like the fact that there were so many applications definitely added some factor to it. Also, I mean, another thing to mention is that last year, a lot of people deferred to a gap year, and they ended up, coming in this year instead. So colleges will automatically have to subtract those spots because, they only have a certain capacity. So, that fact, coupled with the fact that so many people are applying, it just wasn't like that great of a year, for all of us. And, we could say that we made it through and everything, but like, I'm sure all of us like wanted it to go differently, and it just went the way it did. So,
Yeah, I mean, like, I really agree with what you said, because you and I both personally know many, many kids who got off waitlists at very competitive schools, at not just one, but a couple of places. And, in part that was possible because, a lot of people, again, deferred their admission to our year. And I guess that brings me to my next question, that do you think that colleges should have more spots for the class of 2025, like people our age, not 18 or 19 years old? Because so many of the students deferred from last year. There's many of the competitive schools like Harvard, Yale, MIT had acceptance rates well in the very, very low, on the lower halves of the single digits, like 3%, 2% in some cases, and that's just insane. Just crazy to imagine. So I guess do you just think that colleges should do something to incorporate that discrepancy, so to speak?
I mean, it's hard to say because I don't exactly know how much money these colleges have to invest in new dorms, new classes, new teachers, new professors, and all of that. But yeah, I definitely think there should have been something, because the fact that I don't know, like some of the colleges, people with thousands, even like hundreds of thousands of kids dream of getting to one of these colleges, and just to know that now they have a 3% acceptance rate when once upon a time they had like a 6%, 7%. I mean, I don't even want to get into the fact that a lot of people base their choosing off of percentage rates when it should really be based off of what you want to do in the future. But I mean, in general, I feel like the fact that they had such low acceptance rates, and these were dream colleges for so many kids. I think it is a bit I'd say, I don't want to say stupid, but I think it was a bit stupid that these colleges didn't decide to give more admissions to kids. Even I think that, I don't know, I heard somewhere about Harvard that they accepted 1,900 kids, and they normally have an 80% yield or something like that. So I mean, they're expecting 20% of kids to go to a different college, but that's not going to be the same this year. As I mentioned before, there's the gap year kids, there's the kids who probably had some other extenuating circumstances. So, I mean, I definitely think there should have been more room for kids, for especially the class of 2021. But again, I don't know what's exactly going on with all these colleges. I think they should have definitely been more open about what's going on, because, I mean, we can't just be kept in the dark. And at least, I guess we can say that now the class of 2022 will have a better idea of how college admissions will go, how low they can possibly drop, to the 3%, 2%, whatever it is. So, yeah, I mean, I definitely think there should have been some kind of openness from the colleges.
I think there were so many factors which made this year the crazy year that it was. We had a record number of applicants. Whether you can attribute that to COVID, or like the SAT being test optional, and seeing all these top schools have a crazy amount of admissions, 60,000-80,000 admissions to a lot of these schools, and I guess just speaking from personal experience that every year when you talk to people in those tiers, like they think, oh, there are like one or two schools that they thought they would get into, but they just got rejected. Oh well, like that's how it goes. But this year, not just me or you, but like the people we've spoken to, like there have been so many schools where we can go like, oh yeah, like, and that's a target school for that person. That person should get into that school. They're a hardworking person, and that person would just get flat out rejected. And I myself had that experience with a lot of different schools too, and it's pretty disheartening. I mean obviously it's disheartening, but with all of the vast number of international applicants, with the SAT score being test optional, and yeah, like all of those factors just culminated into just not working out.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm always a fan of the phrase that the admissions officers know what they're doing. They know fit. They'll know if you fit or not. And I've heard it from past students, even my own brother who was a graduate, that they know if you're going to fit somewhere or not. I feel like the fact that they had so many applications, like, kind of takes away from that feeling. Like, do they really know if you fit or not? Do they really know that that you should have been waitlisted or rejected when maybe you should have been accepted because that was the place for you? So, I mean, this year definitely created a lot of doubt, as it did for many other things besides just college. So, yeah, I mean, I always thought that, yeah, the admissions officers know what they're going to be doing. They know that they should be rejecting certain people while they should be accepting others. But, even these people are stressed about their families, about other things and everything. So, maybe they weren't thinking about the right things at the time also during the college admissions process. So, yeah, I would say it was disheartening for a lot of people. I know a lot of people that I was really hoping would get into some places that they were dreaming of since they were young. And it just didn't turn out like that for them. And, I couldn't see them anywhere else. And I know that it would have been a different year.
Yeah, also, I also thought it was really interesting because there were so many global applications this year, and I saw a really interesting article on the Wall Street Journal, which said that there were a lot of international applicants due to Trump, President Trump leaving office, and it being much more easier to secure a visa to come to this country to study for educational purposes. But that being said, with the enormous amount of international applicants that there were this year, and these people represent an incredibly diverse, internationally creative group of people, but there's still a lot of people on all different sides, who have said that maybe American applicants should receive priority over international applicants. And I just wanted to know your thoughts and opinions on that, because I feel like it's a pretty interesting debate and argument, and each side has merit in my opinion.
I mean, yeah, no, I can't say that they shouldn't have accepted international applicants. There should be freedom to education. All of them should be able to come to America if they want to come for education here. We have some of the best colleges in the world, and if we just stop allowing or decrease the chances for international students to come here just because we want to create more for our own, in which way does that make it equal? I mean, I know a lot of my friends who actually applied to colleges outside the United States, and they even got in, and they're going there. So, I mean, there has to be some kind of intermediate factor in that. So, yeah, the fact, I cannot say that I would support the fact that international students shouldn't be allowed in the U.S. for education. That's completely ludicrous. But yeah, of course there should be some kind of different standards, because everywhere around the world there's different standards for testing, for grades, and all of that. I personally know some cousins from India who applied into U.S. schools. So yeah, I mean, there should be different standards for them. But no, of course not. They should be allowed to pursue their further studies in America and be able to pursue some of the best education in the world. So for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of people also share that opinion about giving international students a fair chance to come over here and pursue an education in whatever capacity that they might want to. And I guess kind of changing the topic a little bit, I also wanted to ask you about what is one part of the process that the college application process that nobody can understand, no one can go through unless you actually go through it. Like even if you say it out loud, like, oh, so and so, like it works like this. What is something that like you can only know by just going through the process?
So this might be a little unconventional, but I'd say like a checklist for every college, because personally, sometimes there's moments where like I sent in my SAT to a college and they just never received it. I don't know why. I don't know where. I don't know what happened. People always complain about like the fact that there are essays and supplementals and everything to keep track of. I personally didn't have trouble with keeping track of those. I had keeping track with the application as a whole. Like, is it being received on time, or every aspect of that application being received on time? Like, I'm pretty sure at the end of the application season, when I was going through all my colleges, and I would say I applied to a higher number than most, maybe, I went through every single college to ensure that they got everything, or that they at least, knew if I wasn't sending something in that like that was allowed under the guidelines. So I think that's something that no one talks about, the fact that, you always have to make sure that your colleges are getting everything and that everything's good. But yeah, that personally was one of the toughest part for me. And second, I would say that, like going back to essays, of course, that's like the thing that everyone mentions. Like, you always have to be eccentric and you have to come up with topics off the top of your head. I mean, most of the time it's like topics came to you at a time where you weren't expecting it, but when you forced it out of yourself, it wouldn't really come out. So yeah, I would say that like until you experience the fact of writing essays upon essays and doing all of that, you won't understand it unless you really go through the process itself and you're going through all those different colleges and their supplements.
I had a much different answer than that. I mean, that's great and all, but I was just tired, man. I was so tired. No one, like, I was in just such a bad place, like, after the college application process. Like, I was, like, my eyes were killing me. I always had such a bad headache from, like, being coffee jittery, writing essays for, like, 8 hours at a time. And my, like, back was killing me. I felt like an old man, like, in a nursing home. It sucked. And I was just, man, I was beat. And no one ever just talks about like the aftermath, like what it just takes out of you, like emotionally and physically. And like this year especially, like again, not to complain or whatever, but like just worrying about it, like yeah, like obviously you're gonna put your best foot forward, but then afterwards you start to think and like doubt yourself. Oh, in high school I could have done this better, or I could have done this, or I could have done this better. I know me and you have had conversations about those regrets. And you just think, oh, am I going to be good enough for so and so school? And then just all of that, just man, it sucks you out, it saps you, and it just drains you of everything you have. And I just wanted to just share that and wanted to know what you think about that.
I mean, yeah, I definitely knew about the mentally draining part because I had a brother. You have a younger sibling, so it might be a little bit more difficult for you to know. But yeah, I had a brother who told me like it's mentally draining. He might not have tried the hardest in high school, but when it came to the college application season, he really gave it its all. And he was one of the more luckier people in terms of where he was at in that process. So yeah, I mean, I already knew that it would be a mentally draining process. I just didn't know which aspect would it be mentally draining. Like, would it be the fact of making sure everything reached on time? Would it be the actual essay writing itself? Would it be coming up with topics? Would it be knowing when to start? Like, there's so many different things that were coming together at that point. I think something that I would definitely recommend, that I think you would even recommend to a lot of people, is apply to less colleges and apply to more like selected colleges. Don't underestimate yourself because, for example, I know both of us applied to a couple more safeties than I think we should have. And, like just have like faith in yourself. Know that like you'll get somewhere, and put more effort into one application rather than doing like an all-nighter for one and then making sure you get it in the next day. Like that's stupid. Like apply to a number of colleges that seems best for you, and apply to a number that looks best for you, like a couple safeties, a couple targets, and then a couple reaches. I really underestimated the fact that you shouldn't apply to too many colleges. And I didn't realize that was like something that would really come through, because I always thought like, you can reuse supplements and you can reuse essays, and even coming up with essays for 250 words, like it's not terrible, but at the same time, like if I had just chose my list a little bit better, I think maybe I would have been able to dedicate more time to applications that I cared more about. So yeah, that's definitely something.
Yeah, I mean, I really agree with that. Like, I was under the notion, I was a fool at the time when I thought that, oh, it's easy to write a 250-word essay about your passions and interests, but man, is it hard. And it's much harder than you think. And once you actually put pen to paper, put your fingers into the keyboard, hammering out those ideas, and you can't really hammer them out. They come when they come. And I think that's just a simple math of it. Sometimes some colleges work out and some don't. Some supplements work and some don't.
Sure.
And I guess that, like, just a little bit of advice that like, if we can give any, is that, just like Abhi said, don't ever underestimate yourself, and spend as much time as you can on your essays, because people don't realize how important that is. Because let's say that you're a really strong applicant and you're trying to apply to XYZ school and you have the grades, but maybe you don't have the extracurriculars to back it up. Use your essays to convey yourself. Use your essays to show that you're more than just a test score. You're more than just, maybe missing out on something. Use your essays to show that, like, you're an actual human being who cares about learning, who cares about, having a good time, and just exploring your passions and your interests. And just don't slack off or procrastinate, because I just don't.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's more important to show your humanity than to, like, pursue that notion that, oh, I must seem spiked in one area, or I'm not going to get in. Like, no, I've heard of people writing about, like, K-pop or boba tea, or, like, personally, I wrote about some, like, eccentric things too. I know you wrote about some weird things too. So yeah, like, you write about who you are. Like, don't make it more than it is. Don't make it that you're changing yourself to appeal to a different audience, because at the end of the day, like, the admissions reader is also just a person. They just want to get to know who you are. So definitely, like, don't procrastinate, but at the same time, like, make sure you're focusing on who you are as a person, and not writing about someone who you think would get into this college. Because trust me, I think that they can read people. That's their living, like, they'll be able to read through a paper to show that, oh yeah, that's not the actual person conveying who they are. That's, like, someone they're making up. So, you don't really want to get caught up in that. So definitely one thing I would recommend is, like, don't be caught up in the notion that you have to write about like STEM if you are going into STEM. No, you can write about different things and then maybe connect to it in one point, but eventually, like, it doesn't have to be only about one part. So yeah, that's something that I would definitely recommend to a lot of people as well.
Yeah, I mean, I really agree with that. And I guess just, like, one final point I just want to touch on is that, like in the beginning of the podcast, we mentioned that you are going to be attending Cornell Engineering. I guess just the final point is that, what about Cornell Engineering drew you there, and why is that the place that, like, you want to go to for the next 4 years, and just what brought you there?
I mean, as we talked about, like, it wasn't initially where I saw myself being there, because, again, something I mentioned at the beginning of this was that you really have to experience the campuses for yourself. And I was always caught up in the fact that, like, people told me, oh, Ithaca might not be the best place for you if you prefer urban campuses, or, like, it's going to be hard to adjust, it's really isolated. I never tried to experience it for myself. And, I only did it after I gained admission. And then I discovered that Ithaca is really not that bad. It's like Cornell has a really great community and everything, and their resources are unmatched by a lot of schools. So, I mean, I would say that discover the school for yourself. You're not going to be able to just rely on someone else and figure it out based on what they have for the experience. No, figure it out for yourself. So personally, I chose it because I thought that Ithaca was beautiful. I thought that Cornell Engineering, their faculty was amazing. Their research was amazing. Like, the research was a big factor for me. And I ended up wanting to go because that was the best out of all my choices. Yeah, and that also shows you that, where you initially might thought you would be going, that's not where you're going to be ending up. So, always be prepared for that fact as well.
Yeah, I really agree with that. I never thought I'd be going halfway across the country, but yeah, I mean, just, you never know what can happen. Just keep an open mind and an open heart, and I guess it'll all work out. We'll have a grand old time. So that's it, guys. Thank you so very much, and feel free to reach out to this stud